Your top fantasy scorer last night around the NHL, not a shocker. It's coming in the crease in a game that went to 3 overtimes. Was absolutely insane. Igor Shesterkin, north of 46 points, 79 saves, a near 96% save percentage. Whew. Who else? Nathan McKinnon's on there. Oh, yeah, that's right, because the Avs put up like 7 goals. That was ridiculous. Adam Fox on there, too, rounding out the top 5, just north of 32 points. Let's talk to these dudes about it. Senior fantasy editor, NHL.com, and host of the NHL Fantasy on Ice podcast, Pete Jensen, and in RotoWire's Paul Bruno. Guys, last night, second night of the Stanley Cup playoffs, a little better than night 1, in my opinion, because you didn't have like 75% of the games being blowouts. But, Paul, what'd you take away from last night? And I wasn't able to make it for all 3 overtimes. I don't know about you. I passed out.
I turned it on in the first overtime, and I'm glad that I did. There was quite a lot of drama all the way through that. But you got to give the Penguins a lot of credit. They're down to their 3rd-string goalie here, having pulled that one off.
Yep.
I don't know if that bodes well for the future, their future in this set, but they did get the all-important first win on the road, particularly. So kudos to them. And then, I can't overlook what happened the first night, too. The same thing happened in the Florida, where the Caps upset the home side, and in Edmonton, LA edged the Oilers. So we already got some series with some intrigue, and I can't let this go to Pete without saying the Leafs played a near perfect game in their opener too.
Oh yeah, Pete. I mean, is it too early to say here that the Panthers' style can't work in the playoffs?
I mean, it's a little concerning considering they got Aaron Ekblad back and still had a stinker at home in game 1. I mean, my takeaway from the playoffs so far is don't forget about the old guard out there, right? With Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, of course, in their mid-30s and producing at the highest level and helping the Penguins, upset the Rangers there in the first game. And then, of course, on the other side, in that Capitals game, don't forget about Ovechkin. He had that key assist on the Kuznetsov goal. He's 36. And that team's not going away quietly. The Capitals, any given game, can beat anybody home and road. They've proved that year after year. So, it's May the 4th. So, I mean, these old guardsmen, they're it's kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi, kind of like Qui-Gon Jinn, the old guys that just continue to wow you every single time.
I mean, we showed you all the saves in the Penguins-Rangers game. Just put that in perspective. Markstrom there, right, for the Flames, needed only a mere 16 saves for a shutout there in the 1-0 victory over the Stars. Let's see, though. Let's go to tonight, because one of the best parts, guys, of the first round of Stanley Cup playoffs, you still get a pretty solid 4-game fantasy slate each night. It's fantastic. Lots of options. So let's see who you're going to pay out for at center, Paul.
I'm looking at 3 players whose teams need to respond tonight. The Oilers certainly face a must-win scenario, and I expect them to respond big time tonight. Look for their leaders to do the paving of the way. And instead of taking McDavid, though, I'm going to save $800 and go to Draisaitl in that one, since he's a trigger man there. I always say the guy that's most likely to get the goals is who I want to pick more often than not if there's kind of a second choice like McDavid, who's will be a first on many people's list. And then speaking of responses, I think the Bruins need to do much the same against Carolina. Look, Carolina's absolutely bombed Boston on the scoreboard all 4 times that they've played, but I will note that the Bruins outshot them in game 1 by a pretty sizable margin. And don't forget, Antti Ranta is still in net. I don't have a lot of faith in him as the second keeper in the depth chart for Carolina. So I look for the Bees to come back in a big way, and that means lean on Patrice Bergeron for $6,500. That's a cheap price for number 1 center on one of the best lines in hockey. And then speaking of another situation that's very similar, the Wild got shut out at home in their opener. That's not a good thing, and that they're a high-scoring team, so that we'll call it a one-off, and look for their first line to rebound, and that means that Ryan Hartman is in play for me too. This guy's coming off a 34-goal season on their first line. He only cost $5,400. A bit of an insult.
Pete, 4 dudes who will cost at least $8,000.
Yeah, and one of them, Steven Stamkos. I like this play for the Tampa Bay Lightning. This team, remember, go back to each of the past 2 postseasons. Not once did they lose consecutive games. So as much as everything's going, amazing and so great so far in Leafland, like could be a rude awakening if they don't take this game seriously. So Stamkos coming off a 100+ point season. He's never done that before prior to this season. And yeah, I really like the Stamkos play. I also like Ryan O'Reilly. I'm a little worried about the Minnesota Wild. I know it's only one game, but Ryan O'Reilly took full charge, was playing with David Perron. They both had multi-point games. O'Reilly quietly, dating back to the year the Blues won the Cup 2019, has 39 points in 40 playoff games in that span. And in points per game, that's 6th among the entire league over that span.
All right, I'm looking here in the wings and things department. Pete, Nikita Kucharov topping the list. Good spend-up spot and a potential bounce-back game for the Lightning?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm not going too crazy because I have, I was impressed by the Leafs in game 1, but definitely going to spend up for either in my mock lineup, either Kucherov or Stamkos. I'm leaning towards Stamkos. I think he's a better standalone. And then, looking at other wings, I think the Bruins have bounced back appeal. I like the price on Brad Marchand, $6,700, a lot cheaper than Pasternak. And you could actually get Eric Howla to kind of offset and not only offset the price, but kind of get exposure to each of the Boston top 2 lines. But I also like Seth Jarvis on the wing, 3,400, and is playing with Sebastian Aho. He's a value pick, a glaring one at that. And Aho, not many people realize, is better than a point per game in the playoffs in his NHL career. And Seth Jarvis, one of the most underrated rookies in the league this season.
Paul, what's your strategy at winger?
First, let me say I've been crossing my fingers. It might look like I'm doing the Draymond Green thing here, but I'm crossing my fingers when he makes the Tampa references, okay, just to be clear. I think Boston is the team that I would stack tonight, so I look for them to square their set, and that means they're going to rely on their top players. David Pasternak is the top sniper on the wing that I'll be looking to put in my lineup, costing $7,500. This guy's got 7 goals, 16 points in his last 10 games played, averaging over 4 shots on goal in that stretch. He always comes up big when the chips are down. The Bees will be in it all night tonight, and I think they're going to come out on top. The Leafs skated away from the Lightning in game 1, I'm reminding you, and Ilya Mikheyev is a guy who typifies just what they did to earn that advantage with an up-tempo style of play. He's a key on both special teams as well. You play the second power play unit and he gets shorthanded time, and in Toronto that means that they're going for goals even when they're shorthanded. They did it in game 1, and that's a real threat to the Tampa forwards as well. He's only going to cost $3,800. The Bolts will be focused on the Leafs big line, so I'm counting on Toronto's second unit, where you'll find Mikheyev to take advantage of a better matchup. And then finally, Kevin Fiala has only 1 point in his last 4 games. That comes on the heels of a 10-game scorching hot streak in the left wing on the second line here. I say he'd get out of his rut and the Wild offense tonight at home. He cost $5,800 this evening.
Yeah, good value play. 85 points in 82 games, average north of 3 shots a goal per game there for Fiala. Bring us home here, Pete, with your pick on the blue line.
I'll go with Evan Bouchard for the Edmonton Oilers. He brings some exposure at even strength to McDavid and Draisaitl in a bounce-back spot for the Oilers at home. But Bouchard returned value in game 1 with an assist and 2 shots. And he's also been returning value stretch run of the regular season. He's putting up a ton of shots. He's putting up a ton of blocks in the regular season span, closing it out, and 5 points in his final 6 games. So Evan Bouchard, I think next year is going to be a big breakout candidate. But even so, this year, he's top 15 among all defensemen in the league in even strength points. So this guy's got total untapped potential for any given game come postseason time.
Paul Hedman, top of the list here. His price dropped $300 too.
It's going to drop for a couple more games, and then you'll say bye-bye to him. How about that? Eh? I'm instead looking at 2 other power play quarterbacks that are a lot cheaper. In fact, they come in at sub 5,000 on tonight's schedule. Charlie McAvoy plays all the high leverage minutes for the Bruins and is a team leader there. It's not often you'll see this top D-man for only $4,600. I lock him in as part of my Boston stack. And the same narrative applies to Minnesota's Jared Spurgeon. For $3,800, you're getting their top power play defenseman in the lineup. Both of these picks, no-brainers for me, and I'm glad I can save money on the blue line, which means I'll spend money elsewhere.